Well, first of all, I've spent a lot of my career as a teacher and a scholar um, getting a sense of the history, or shall we call it tradition, of those of us in the Stone Campbell movement, Restoration movement, Churches of Christ, under the early impression I got that we have one and that it matters. It matters more than most of us have been aware. It shaped us in ways that have been mostly unconscious to us. And so a lot of my earlier work was to begin to open up that history, the book Discovering Our Roots, for example. And this book builds on that and goes beyond the history of modern Churches of Christ or the Restoration movement to try to imagine us in the context, the much larger context of the Christian tradition, the larger Christian tradition, what I call here the great stream, some call the great tradition. This is, to put it in different language, what can be called Christian orthodoxy, as it took shape in the first 3 centuries of the Christian era. And my argument ultimately is that in a time like ours, where truth becomes so light, as it were, soft, that having this stronger, larger, deeper foundation helps us have a center, helps us grasp the basic essentials of the Christian faith in a time when they seem more variable and more challenged, to help ground us in the center of the faith. That's it in a nutshell.
And that's certainly something we're needing right now, is a lot of grounding. There's a lot of ungrounding and a lot of digging things up, but it's hard for people to land. And I think people are searching for that bedrock. We think about the Restoration movement as being a unity movement. So what factors led to that being the case? I don't know how familiar people are with that idea. So can you kind of give us a little synopsis of that?
This history, this movement began in the very opening years of the 19th century, when, as we know, 2 people primarily, Barton Warren Stone and Alexander Campbell, and his father, Thomas, had a kind of similar vision. One key factor was for the Campbells, Thomas and Alexander, was their background in the Presbyterian movement in Ireland, which was very fractious. And as our listeners may know, the Campbells were part of a sect of Presbyterianism called the Seceders. When Thomas Campbell came to America in 1807, he found the same thing happening here. In fact, he was part of a Seceder Presbyterian synod in Western Pennsylvania, and got into trouble when one Sunday he invited some Presbyterians from a different sect of Presbyterianism to have communion in his church. And he got basically booted out because of that action. And he just had enough. He says, I can't keep doing this. And so he formed the Christian Association of Washington, not a church, but a kind of nonprofit, you might say, in modern terms, of just interested volunteers who wanted to explore a different vision for church. And as part of this, he, over the months that followed, he wrote a manifesto called the Declaration and Address of the Christian Association of Washington. And it was published in September 1809, just a few months before his son, Alexander, arrived in America. And it set out 13 propositions for the unity of the church. It was a fairly erudite and, wordy sort of document. It didn't get a wide reading. In fact, it wasn't even well circulated and reprinted until the 1860s. But it became the manifesto through which his son, Alexander, set his basic agenda to restore apostolic Christianity and thereby bring a new kind of unity. He envisioned worldwide unity to the fractious Christian movement. So that background experience in his Presbyterian denominationalism played a very key role. And then in America, when he saw in the free air, the democratic ethos of America, when he saw Christians of different traditions continuing to divide, arguing, debating, a lot of animosity, he thought all the more reason to try to transcend this fray, began to set forth what he took to be his father's vision for Christian unity in America and beyond. That was, I think, the key factor. A second factor, I would say, was the free air of America, where people sensed a certain freedom from the constrictions of tradition, where there were new possibilities. There was freedom to think for yourself. There was freedom to start your own church, so to say. This democratic spirit on the frontier, especially in America, I think became a hothouse for this kind of experimentation. The large dream, I mean, the kind of bold dream that this could really happen. This could actually take place right here. And this could be a phalanx by which the Christian movement unites in the world and thereby the millennial age dawn.
No, that's really helpful. So there are religious factors, there are nationalistic, if that's lack of a better word, factors. There are philosophical factors, right?
Yeah,
like the Enlightenment and ability.
I might address that third point as a growing significance, a philosophical factor. There was the sense in the moderate Enlightenment, and the Campbells were trained in the moderate Enlightenment in Scotland before they came to America, trained in what's called the common sense philosophy that was developed at the University of Edinburgh and other places there, where there was this profound sense that human reason could simply, by clear its head and simply read the unadorned facts straight out. That is, they called it common sense, just a common sense reading of reality, both nature and scripture, and could just and put aside all the preconceptions, put aside the traditional interpretations, and just read the facts straight out. There was this ebullient confidence that one could do that, both in both of God's books. See, there was the sense that God had authored two books, not only the book of Scripture, but the book of nature. Science was reading the book of nature with amazing new results to control and develop from that. And if you could use the same method in reading the Scripture, you would likely get the same results. In this case, a new kind of coming together around the simple truth, the facts of the Bible. Campbell had an enormous confidence in that for unity.
So you have the need for unity in his experience religiously in Europe and then coming over to the States. Then you have the things that kind of feed, like, how are you going to do this? Well, we have the Enlightenment, we have common sense, we have tabula rasa, the blank slate, the idea of like just clear it all out and look at things as if we can just have the facts and there's not any really more to it. So there's like a whole conglomeration of things, it sounds like, kind of came together from the need to the means in his mind of how to accomplish that. And from his cultural perspective, that made an awful lot of sense.